Hello, Ben Kingsley here, the Chair of the Property Investors Council of Australia. If you're not familiar with PICA, we're the peak association nationally that represents property investors' interests. So we look after the 2.15 million property investors in Australia when it comes to advocating on their behalfs and also building their awareness and education. Now, the purpose of this particular video is to highlight our concerns and some of the misinformation that's being spread in regards to the negative gearing policy changes proposed by Labor. This is, a big issue that's leading up to the election, and voters need the opportunity to hear all the facts that are stated and, basically not get caught up in the spin. So that's what this video is going to do. When I look at a video that's been done by Chris Bowen, an interview on the Insiders program, I'm able to then look at what he's saying and then try and shed some light around the comments that he's putting together. But before I critique Mr. Bowen on the Insiders program, I just wanted to thank him. About a month ago, we released a press release asking for Labor to provide their intentions. This was on the back of Mr. Bowen appearing on the 7:30 program with Lee Sales and declaring that voters would get an opportunity, plenty of time in terms of when they plan to implement these changes. So thank you for Mr. Bowen for that information. That's on the back of, the reason why we called out this media release is because we heard Bill Shorten saying we'll get to that after the election, but it looks like you needed to get to that to balance your books in terms of your election pledges. And that's all great. So no problems there. But thank you again, Mr. Bowen, for being very clear and upfront in terms of when your intentions are. So let me now just go over to the interview that was conducted on the Insiders program last Sunday. And I just want to play you a segment from that right now.
ATO figures out this week showed there are fewer people negative gearing already. So isn't Chris Bowen the market doing the job you're seeking to do already?
Well, it also showed the biggest increase has been with people with 5 and 6 houses. I mean, the government thinks that it's more important to give a tax break to people with their 5th and 6th house than it is to support people buying their first house.
Well, if that's a concern, excuse the interruption, why don't you just put a cap on the number of houses?
Well, we considered all those.
So I just want to stop it there in terms of now the cap idea is an alternative idea, but I just want to address what Mr. Bowen was saying in regards to the ATO stats that Michael Rowlands was referring to. So I've got here the stats, put together a little spreadsheet here showing what they're referring to. And we can see here that in the ATO data for individuals and investment properties over the course of each financial year, and the latest data was only released last Friday, so it's quite insightful data. Now, what Mr. Bowen was saying is that the biggest increase was for people buying their 5th and 6th properties. Now, in terms of that, if we're talking about increase in terms of numbers, well, obviously that's completely wrong. But if we are talking about percentage increase, Mr. Bowen is correct in terms of the growth of the 5th property, but certainly not the 6th property. That was actually the smallest increase. But this is where it comes down to the spin that you'll see, both political parties do, in terms of trying to get their message sold out into the marketplace. Now, we are hearing from Labor a lot of spin around the greedy property investor who's buying their 5th or 6th investment property. But what we're referring to in terms of this is individual numbers. So when they keep talking about this rhetoric of the 5th and 6th property, there are 19,504 people in this country who has 5 investment properties. There are 20,357 people at the end of, obviously, this 2016-17 years. That number may have increased. You can see the numbers increasing. There was 641 increases and 309 increases of 6 or more. But in terms of the Australian population, we're hearing this rhetoric around, these greedy property investors. In terms of the population size, that is 0.077 of 1% of the population in regards to 5 properties. And in terms of the population size for 6 properties, It's slightly higher. Now, the reality is this rhetoric that is annoying and is what we refer to as spin. Okay, so you've got to be understanding the vast majority of people only own one property and they're mum and dad investors and they're looking to provide for their family's future. That's the reality. Now, we have seen growth in all of those areas, and we definitely have seen growth over time in terms of more property investors coming into the market. That's true. Let's go back to the video, and now let's talk about, listen to what he has to say about doing a cap. If that is the big problem, why don't we do a cap instead of what they're proposing? And I think that's a very valid question.
And why don't you just put a cap on the number of
Well,
houses
we considered all those options when we developed the policy 3 years ago, Michael, but people say negative gearing is necessary to stimulate new construction. Well, at the moment, to the degree that that's true, 96% of negative gearing goes on existing houses, not new construction, so it's a 96% failure rate. If you allow negative gearing going forward, we grandfather all existing investments, but we allow it going forward for new construction. That means instead of 96% going to existing houses, 100% will go to new construction. It'll spur investment. Put it together with our build to...
All right, so this is where I almost lost my cornflakes watching this on Sunday morning. In terms of this number that he quoted. So 96% of all negative gearing investors buy existing property. Now, I've been, investing in property for over 20 plus years, and I've been in the industry now for over 16, I think coming up to 16 years. This is completely different to the data that we would understand in the marketplace, and so it did raise some curiosity with me, and I couldn't quite understand where this number that he was quoting was coming from. And it appears that there is some reference to the financing that's going on across the marketplace and the ABS data, because I'm seeing some people on social media sort of quoting similar type of numbers, and I just couldn't understand that. Now, I'm a qualified broker, and someone who plays in the property investment space on a full-time basis. And, anecdotally, in talking to all of the experts over the many, many years that I've been doing this, only about 20 to 30% of people buy existing property, and the vast majority of investors actually buy brand new. So this was completely contradictory to what the industry knows as being the norm. And you only have to think about all of those medium and high-rise apartments. The vast majority of those properties are bought by investors, not by owner-occupiers. So I needed to do a little bit of digging in terms of how this was come about. And so this is what I learned. I'm just going to take you into our online platform. So this is how you would submit a loan to a lender. And these are universal platforms that allow brokers who generate 60% of all new lending that is reported by the ABS. Now, how this is reported, in my research, I found that the lender provides this data to APRA, and then APRA provides this data to the ABS to report on. And I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. Now, the information you see in front of you is only a sample. This is not a true person. But I just wanted to show you can see here quite clearly the purpose is for investment, and you can also see here that it's the ABS purpose. So whether it be a broker or a lender is asked this question, we need to fill this in, because this is the origins, this is the source of the data that's ultimately reported. So it was quite surprising to me in terms of why they were sort of claiming that it's all for existing property, and hence the reason why Labor has come up with this policy could have been on the back of the wrong information that they had at hand, because it's definitely not the case at all. The vast majority of people are already buying new properties as opposed to buying existing. So let's show you. So at the back end, this is what happens. So when we have to select a category here. So you can see here where it says purchasing existing real estate. So that's the first category here. Now you can clearly see that it says purchase of newly erected dwelling. and purchase of newly erected dwelling, other dwelling by first mortgage. So that's the investment property right there. So that is clearly showing. So if I was to click on that, it clearly shows that it's going to be classified as purchasing existing real estate, when in fact it's not. It's purchasing a newly erected dwelling. The other big one, the significant one where most investors will put their money, is off the plan purchases. Let's take a look at this one. Same thing again, off the plan. Well, you can only ever buy brand new off the plan once. So the next time you're buying it is just an existing dwelling, all right? But you can see here it's absolutely brand new if it's bought off the plan because it's never been lived in, and that's purchasing existing real estate. So I started to think, oh my goodness, does this mean that Labor has made a policy in the belief that basically everyone's buying existing property when we aren't? And so more needs to be done on that. But from my point of view, they can't be out there claiming that the policy's not working. 96% failure rate is what I heard. Now, you can also see, if we do go to the construction, which is probably where they're getting the 4% from, what we're talking about for construction is where we do a purchase or construction of a dwelling for rent. So they're probably thinking that's the one. But the vast majority of people who are filling in these categories are actually filling in these categories up here, newly established dwellings. And it's pretty clear, isn't it? Because the vast majority of properties that are being sold and built over the recent boom that we've had have all been, apartments, or vast majority have been apartments in Sydney and parts of Melbourne and Brisbane. And the vast majority of those have been sold to investors. So that's a concern, and I'll be taking that up the line to see whether we can get that information changed. Because if commentators, economists, and everyone are viewing the ABS data and having a look at data that's showing, over 90% of people are buying existing properties, that simply is not true. So from a fact check point of view, that's the wrong information. You would then obviously go and select what it was. If it's a newly erected property or it's an off the plan purchase, you save those changes, and then that would be recorded as part of your submission to the lender. So there's work to be done here by the lenders, by APRA, and also by the ABS to get that data correctly categorised inside those reports, so we don't see that happen again. So I just wanted to highlight that, because again, in Mr. Bowen's defence, he may not have realised that. And if Labor is basing policy on this idea that people are buying more existing properties over new properties, that's just factually incorrect. And we don't want Labor going out into the marketplace, whether it be Mr. Bowen, Mr. Shorten, or any of the other Labor people, promoting that it's got a 96% fail rate, when the fact of the matter is negative gearing has done a lot to introduce new supply, new rental accommodation, new jobs into the marketplace, and he's saying that that's not the case. So that's why I thought it was really important to produce this video to document that factually that's not correct, and we need to do something about that to ensure that the Labor Party don't continue with this incorrect messaging. It may be construed as misleading. So thanks for watching. I'll do a couple more of these video series when I see information that's factually incorrect. You'll be able to find them on the Picker Twitter site, the Facebook site, also the website. And feel free to share these videos, because I think it's really important that we have the correct facts in the marketplace, so all voters can make an informed decision, and also the Labor Party can understand the consequences of this commentary when it's factually incorrect. Thanks for watching. You may hear from me real soon. Bye for now.